there, welcome back to my channel, Hasty Books. I'm Camila and today I am bringing you all the books that I read in May. So May was a really good month just generally, like we went to a wedding, we went out and traveled a little bit, and it was just really lovely and heartwarming as a month. And obviously the weather is getting better, so more sun and everything, so just generally very good vibes. Reading has also been very good, so I read 9 books in May and I'm very pleased with that because there was 1 or 2 chunky ones and generally I've been working on like not being too obsessive with things that I enjoy doing, so I've been working on that a little bit, and that includes reading but also making videos for Booktube. So last week I actually missed a week of posting videos for the first time since joining Booktube, but I was okay with it, so I was quite pleased with myself that I didn't feel guilty about it. And I also didn't want to just kind of do a quick video and just put it on just to say. So yeah, I'm feeling good about it, but I'm back with some more videos and I'm going on holidays soon. I'll try to continue making videos, but yeah, we'll see how often I can post in the next few weeks, but we'll see. Of the 9 books that I read in May, it was an extremely diverse month, I have to say. So it was extremely white. I think most, if not all, no, I think there was 1 book, I read 1 Bernardine Evaristo, so except her, everyone else I think is a white author. I read lots of historical stuff, so I think it kind of lended itself a bit to that, so lots of white women. I only read 1 man, and that was Douglas Stuart, but generally could have been a more diverse month, especially if you know like how much I enjoy reading like a variety of backgrounds and experiences and topics and everything. But there are more months to come, so I'll be fine. I was also sort of participating in the historical fiction readathon hosted by Katie of Books and Things. I wasn't really adhering to it. I kind of had a list of books that I wanted to read, and for each prompt, and I did a pile of possibilities / TBR for it, which I was really pleased, and I really enjoyed doing these TBR and piles of possibilities because they remind me of books that I have, and they also just feed a little bit of my what could I find for this, and then I find new books new to me, and yeah, that's really nice to spark interest in something. So that was really good, but yeah, I didn't read that many. I mean, technically I read Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, which was for the Women's Prize for Fiction, but technically most of it is historical fiction. The Grand Sophy by Georgette, but it is actually technically historical fiction, and so is Learwife by J.R. Thorp. So they're the main 3. And then there was also, to me, To Kill a Mockingbird and Young Mungo are technically historical fiction because they were both written like 30 to 40 years before they were based, but that doesn't technically count. I think it has to be 60 years. But anyway, still it feels like a historical vibe anyway. But let's get on to some reviews now. So the first book that I read was Manifesto by Bernardine Evaristo. I really, really enjoyed this. So this is her sort of memoir. It's her manifesto. Yes, an intimate and fearless account of how she did it. From like her childhood to like her 20s and like working up, becoming a writer, and really, really inspiring the way that she really focused on it. And I really liked it. It really kind of gave me a little bit of a kick because the way that she talked sometimes about, I didn't watch TV or read too many other books because the times that I'm consuming other people's creation, I'm not creating myself. And sometimes it's a good reminder as someone who wants to write and create that you can't just keep, feeding from other people or procrastinating by reading or, doing videos or watching TV or, all of those things, even though it's very, very fun and I enjoy doing everything. I guess it's everything in like balance to me. So yeah, it was really cool to hear about her background and her inspirations, and she has one of the chapters she talks about all her different books and how long she took to write them and how they came about, and that was really cool, and it's really inspired me to read more of her fiction as well, which was already on my list, but now I definitely want to. Next, I read a classic from my classics TBR, which was Anne of Avonlea by L.M. Montgomery. This is a Canadian classic. It's the second in the Anne of Green Gables series. I really enjoyed it. I feel like I had less, what's the word in English? Like points of reference with this, because obviously it's not quite the series. It's like the first book is like so iconic. So it was a bit more difficult to see where it stands. But I enjoyed it. Did enjoy finding out Anne was a Tory. But generally, you know, Anne still has an effervescence and a youthful energy and enthusiasm for life and for learning and teaching that was really, really cool. Next, I read another one that was on my classics TBR, and that is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. As I'm trying to read all the Brontes this year, and I actually really enjoyed this one. I was kind of surprised. I guess it's because I went in knowing nothing about this. I guess we all heard stuff about Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre and stuff like that, but this one I knew nothing about. And I went in, saw that it was much shorter than the other ones, so I was like, okay, that's cool. And I came to really, really love Anne as a character, not Anne, Agnes, sorry. And kind of almost a bit like Jane Eyre, like very, very similar to me in terms of the way that she wants to be there for children, like her basically coming up like a job and with family and having potentially like a love interest. I just thought it was really good. There's some quite horrific descriptions of animal abuse at the beginning, just as a, you know, good to know. But generally, yeah, I thought it was really nice, and I liked the slight add of the romance toward the end, and yeah, I thought it was really good. I was really pleased with this one. Next, I read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Again, this was on my list of classics on my classics TBR, and I finally tackled it. And it's really funny because this one, I went in as the opposite of Agnes Grey. I went in this one with a lot of expectations, and I don't actually think that they were expectations as much as I was like, oh yeah, people are always talking about this book. I guess we'll see now what it really is. And I knew it was about a lawyer defending a black man in like the American South, like, you know, like 100 years ago, whatever. And I was like, oh god, what is it going to be like? But I think this really, really holds up. This was so good, and I really, really see why this is one of the classics that people, you know, make children read in class, and that we still talk about today. It's just so, I mean, it's so relevant still, which is horribly sad, but it is, so incredible. I really, really like the character of the dad. I've already forgotten his name. Atticus Finch, right? The daughter's perspective was really great as well, even though sometimes I was like, oh god, but I don't love young narrators. That's just one of my things. But also I thought it was quite refreshing because of the way that she's clearly learning as we go. So yeah, I thought this was amazing and a huge recommend, and I'm kind of just adding my voice to say that why this is a classic and why everyone should read it. Then I finally finished Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. I got an extension from the library and then so I didn't touch it for like a week, and then I was like, oh, I have to read like 300 pages in like a week. So I like went properly for it, and I think once I got to about half the book, it got really like, I was really into it, and I was like, okay, I need to know what's going to happen. And then from there it went really quickly toward the end. As I said in the previous video, when I started this book, the first chapter, like the sort of introduction to it, I thought was brilliant. It was so beautifully written and I absolutely adored it, and I was already like, oh my god. And then as you dive in, the way that it starts, because we basically get the full life of the main character Marion, and I guess it takes so long to get to like her interest in flying and stuff like that, and because it sells us that it's like when she does the Great Circle, when she tries to circumnavigate from pole to pole, and it takes so long to get there that you're just like, oh my god, why? And then on top of it, you get a second storyline, which is about this really kind of apathetic actress from Hollywood in modern day, and yeah, she was definitely not a likable character. Well, to be fair, neither is Marion. Like, I think that didn't help, but by 3/4, I was kind of okay with the storyline of the actor, but I still feel like if it'd been cut, the book would have still been great. I do feel like it was been added in just to add this extra time to wait between the chapters of Marian's perspective, and especially toward the end where we're like, oh, what's really happened, and you know, like we're getting to, has she finally made it to the end or not, or yeah, the truth behind the voyage basically. But by the last chapter I was, yeah, completely taken in, and I was actually crying, and like I sometimes like get a little tear in my eye, whatever, but I was properly crying for that one, and I thought it was just beautiful, and that kind of raised it to a 4 or 5 star for me. It was quite an adventure of a book, like a journey, and I thought it was quite epic. So yeah, I thought it was really, really good. Next, I read The Grand Sophy by Georgette. So I had actually Googled, after hearing a couple people talk about Georgette, including Elizabeth from Bookings and Books, I Googled, okay, which one would be the best? So I decided to read this one for historical fiction, read it on. And I Googled a couple things, and of the ones that I could find and had access to, The Grand Sophy was the one that was the most like highly recommended. And I actually really, really loved it. And it really felt, and I guess it's because Heyer isn't technically really like contemporary to us, like she's not writing from 2022. So it felt like she had this more kind of older voice that matched more with Regency, even though loads of people in reviews and stuff have said how it's really not very true to Regency era, but I felt like it had very similar vibes to books that I've read from the Regency, including Jane Austen. Although, yeah, the social commentary wasn't quite there, but I just really like Sophie as a character. I like her audacity, and yeah, I thought it was a really fun book. To me, unfortunately, the end ruined it for me. I can't say quite why without kind of ruining it a little bit, but to me, the ending, like literally like the last 2 pages, just kind of took a star off because I really disagreed with it. And that's also when I saw that this wasn't written in contemporary like times. So yeah, I give it a 4 because I loved it so much. I was gonna give it a 5, and then the end kind of took it down a notch, you know. But I still would recommend it, and I will definitely read more by Heyer. Then I read Spring by Ali Smith. As I mentioned before, I am currently reading the seasonal quartet by Ali Smith, and so I've read Autumn, Winter, and now Spring. I'm kind of trying to kind of read them through the actual seasons, and they're all very similar in the way that they approach like a topical political climate of like post-Brexit Britain. And this one, I actually really liked it, despite the main sort of character being an extremely, I want to say ignorant, because I don't think that she believes a lot of the things that she says, which are very anti-immigrant and racist and stuff like that. But also I think like the showing of that character was really interesting in terms of the people who believe things because it's like in newspapers and stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Just generally, I think it was really good. It's difficult to talk about these books because the storylines are a bit muddled, but it's usually very, yeah, political. But then there's a storyline throughout, which in this one is this woman who is actually a guard in one of these facilities for refugees and migrants or whatever they want to call them. And she meets a little girl who wants to go to Scotland, and she randomly ends up on the train with that girl, even though she was on her way to work. And yeah, so kind of the storyline kind of goes from there. Yeah, it was really good. I look forward to reading Summer and kind of finishing the quartet. I've seen that the companion piece has come out, and I don't know if it's technically like its own book, if it's a companion piece to the seasonal quartet, but I'm definitely interested in continuing to read Ali Smith. And yeah, I'll definitely come back when I finish the quartet and tell you like a little bit more about my general thought about the quartet as a whole. Then I read Young Mungo by Douglas Stuart. Stuart won the Booker Prize in like 2020, I want to say, for Sugar Bane, his debut novel. So this was his second novel. I didn't read Sugar Bane because it looked really miserable. And I was like, I don't know if I have this in me to read about this. And yeah, I was kind of not that into it. For some reason, to me, Young Mungo looked like more of something celebrating youth and being like a gay boy in Glasgow and stuff like that. Well, Well, I was wrong because this book was also miserable. That doesn't mean to say it was bad, in no way. It actually really was gripping, and it was really beautiful to see Glasgow being portrayed, especially working class Glasgow. I just loved, you know, Scots being represented in books, and, you know, representing a gay boy in a working class setting, which is extremely like patriarchal and toxic masculinity and all that. But instead of kind of celebrating that connection he has with another boy, who's across like the sectarian line. So sectarianism, it was and is still sort of something in Scotland that is a bit between kind of Catholics and Protestants, and also there's the line in the football as well and stuff like that. Anyway, let's not get into it. It was almost like a bit of a Romeo and Juliet thing, but it doesn't celebrate it. It shows, I guess, a more kind of, I don't want to say realistic, to me it was quite pessimistic view of where this could really go. And my main problem with this book, it's not that I have a problem with it, but it's just that I thought it was a miserable experience to read, and I think I would avoid Douglas Stewart in future, just because I think he's a brilliant writer, but I just don't think that that's the vibe of books that I want to read. So basically there are two storylines in this book, and one of them is really horrible. So basically, and it's kind of spoilery, but it includes multiple sexual assault of the boy who's a child, and rape by adults. And it was horrible. It was quite graphic at times, and I just didn't want to read about that. And I just thought, why add this? Like, the other storyline had enough weight on its own. Like, I just don't know what all of this extra trauma added to it. Yeah, anyway, I struggle to know exactly how I feel about it, but I thought it was a lot, and it was hard to read, and yeah, it was just tough. And for that reason, it's not a book that I personally would recommend, unless that's kind of, you know what you're in for, then fine. But if you're not, then I don't think it's a book I can recommend, unfortunately. And finally, the last book that I read in May, and technically I finished it on the 1st of June, but I read most of it in May, was Learwife by J.R. Thorp. So this was a book that I bought in the same haul actually that I bought Manifesto by Bernardine and Evaristo, because it was like a hardback haul I did earlier in this year. And I had heard about this, didn't really know that much, except that this is basically giving a voice to the wife of King Lear, who's basically absent from the actual play by Shakespeare. And I just really thought that sounded like a great perspective and topic of interest to me, as I like to read kind of feminist stuff. Reading this was more difficult than I expected. So this is extremely rich in language. So J.R. Thorp is actually, I think she's it says lyricist and librettist, and you can kind of feel it in the way that she writes this book. It's so rich, the language, and it's very lyrical, and there is so much texture and description. It's really brilliant in that way, but it makes it really difficult to read. It just feels like everything's a mouthful. It's just heavy to read. So it's all in the voice of the Queen, and she's mostly at kind of the Abbey where she's been exiled to by King Lear, and then she learns that King Lear and the daughters and their daughters have all been killed, they've all died, and she kind of reminisces about, you know, her first husband, the first king that she married, and then when she married King Lear, her daughters, she was really a bad mother, just generally she's not a likable character, which was also difficult to want to be on her side, and especially if a book is written in the first person, I kind of want to root for them, but I was kind of between two things in this, because I thought this book made her a very complex character in a really non-judgmental way, which was really good, but there were some more difficult bits in there. So yeah, generally I thought this was a great experience of a book. Don't really know where it was going, but I think it's because it very much is about giving that voice and that space to this character that didn't have any before. and you get that sense of like, you know, before, and what is she gonna do after they've passed away, and now that she's technically, I guess, free to, you know, do what she wants. And yeah, it was, and by the end I was quite like, okay, wow, like that was a cool kind of window into this character, but I still feel like there wasn't really plot, there wasn't really like anything. It was like an exploration of this character, and also an exploration of, I think, the language, and I think it was trying to fit in that kind of era and mentality and customs and everything. So yeah, an interesting experience of a book is what I would say about it. Don't know if I would really recommend it, but if you're like really enjoy rich language in books, I think you'll probably enjoy this one. So these were the 9 books that I finished in, well, in May. I technically started like reading loads of other books. I just didn't, like when we were at the wedding, we were away for like 4 or 5 days and I didn't really read, stuff like that. But I'm gonna try to finish most of these in June. So that included like Borges and Me by J. Perini, that I'm actually almost done, so I'll try to finish before we go on holiday. There was also Jacob's Brew by Bridget Knowles. I'm almost done this, and I was almost gonna count it because finishing it in like the first few days of June, but I thought, I'm not finished it by this video means that it really shouldn't count. I'm also about halfway through Mad Women, the poetry collection by Gabriela Mistral, so I'll probably finish that one on holiday. I'm also reading Interior Chinatown as a buddy read with Jay from My Quarter Life Crisis, which I really enjoyed this book actually, and also want to read it when I'm on holiday finally. And I had started She Would Be King by Y.A. Tumor, which is another kind of historical fiction about the birth of Liberia, and I just haven't had time to finish that one. I've been so busy. But yeah, another one that I definitely want to finish over the summer. So yeah, just generally a really good reading month. I've been really pleased. I think my favorite, I mean, I really love Manifesto, which was obviously the only nonfiction that I read. But I thought To Kill a Mockingbird, so good. Agnes Grey, so good. And Great Circle, I think was an epic book, I have to say. Just, yeah, I thought it was really good. So that was it for my May wrap-up. Thank you so much for watching. Don't hesitate to let me know in the comments, what was your favorite book in May? Do you have a recommendation for me? I would love to hear that. And don't forget to, hey, Steve back. Bye!